Okay, we are on air. It is Thursday, August 12th, and this is our fortnightly design meeting. Before we get into what's going on in the agenda, let's go around and do some quick introductions. I'll start. My name is Jen Lampton. I'm joining from Oakland, California, where it is reasonably sunny and nice out today. I was just looking at all of the user experience issues in the issue queue today, and I got very excited about string changes again. So apologize in advance for what I might do to the issue queue today. Let's see, let's turn it over to Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet from Altadena, California. And currently I'm on a rampage against spammers on backdropcms.org. And I'll turn it to Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a backend developer, mostly focusing on tools to make life easier for site builders, I guess. And Luke.
I'm Luke McCormick in San Ramon, California, where I saw a bobcat this morning on a morning walk. I've started doing a little development work this week where I started something and then Joseph finished it, but we'll probably talk about that a little bit later in the episode. Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm joining from Greece. Safe distance from fires going on. I haven't been in touch with the community. I've been on a hiatus for like a month and a half now. I'm trying to catch up with all the activity. It's going to take me a while, but hopefully I'll start chiming in all the Zulip channels and the issue queue, joining just to see where we're at.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I did want to mention that right before we started the video, we had a brief discussion about an issue that Robert brought up on backdropcms.org, that the messages, like the status messages, are appearing sort of below the fold when you create a new account, and it's not very helpful. Greg mentioned that that might be an issue that's happening in Backdrop Core also, but we couldn't find an issue. If anyone remembers that issue and wants to share it with us, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll make a new one. We're also going to fix the problem on backdropcms.org quickly because that's much easier than getting changes in the core. Also related to user experience, if anyone is really passionate about user experience, you can check our issue queue. If you look for anything with 2 square brackets and then the capital letters U and X between them, that indicates that the issue is an issue that affects how people interface with the software. And those improvements can usually get in bug fix releases, even though the issue itself might not be classified as a bug. If there's an improvement to the user experience, we authorize those to go into bug fix releases too. I know we've had a lot of issues, user experience issues that were labeled good first issue and have been getting attention from Open Source Day and other people who are new contributors to Backdrop. And I love that we can get turnaround on new contributor stuff so quickly. So I'm very excited about that. If anyone has any other user experience focused issues for core you want to talk about today.
Sort of.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I dived in this week to fixing a UX issue, and what I'm kind of curious is that one of like a million that are scattered around that we're dealing with, or is it more of like an isolated thing, like having gone after that one? Does that naturally lead to others in a similar ilk in the UX square brackets, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to do that sort of a slippery slope of like, oh, well, all these things are related. And maybe you can get them all into one issue, but maybe they're all just separate. I don't know.
You can start the issue and then you can make it a meta issue and split tickets, issues off of that. Like make it sub-tasks, like checkboxes on that main issue. But you can start a discussion with a single one and then take it from there.
Yeah. often if it's a bunch of like similar string changes, makes sense to put them all in the same issue. But if they are hard and you think that getting them in individually would be easier and getting them all in together will be hard, that's when we're like, we definitely need these to be different issues because we want to make some progress rather than waiting for everything to get done all at once. And sometimes it's hard to know that until after you've had that conversation. So you want to start the issue and be like, these are the problems I'm seeing. And then someone else might be like, oh yeah, well, we can do these two together, but let's make this third one a follow-up. That's often how things end up split into separate issues.
Yeah, and also you're being very cryptic as well. If you were specific with examples, would be able to help more. So
all right, well, I mean, this thing that happened there this week, in last week's outreach meeting, we were talking about a particular usability thing where when you synchronize a full configuration, it would just pop up the first thing that was wrong. And even though you knew there were multiple problems, like if there's one module missing, there's probably other modules missing, but it would just give you the first one. And so you had to go through and do them, this arduous process that you didn't know how long it was going to take. And that was the big problem that struck to me is when you saw one, you suspected there were others, but you didn't know how big it was. And for me, when that happens to me, I just tend to give up because I don't know how many times I'm willing to roll the rock up the hill before giving up on it. And so I just like, I wonder if that could be fixed. So I like dived into the code myself and looked around and kind of figured out where the problem was causing and tried to figure out how to approach the problem and popped up a message on Zulip after I gave up on being able to fully solve it, after I hit a wall. In about an hour, Joseph comes in with like complete code solving it. So I just cut and paste what he wrote into the spot of the code that I'd found, and suddenly worked the way I wanted it to work, where it actually spit out all the known messages. I was like, well, that was great. And then wanting to, I was like, okay, so I need to create a pull request for this. How do I name the pull request? And I should name them the issues. So then I like wrote the issue that we had already solved as if it was an unsolved problem and incorporated that in. So I did this sort of like brief backwards tour of the process of solving a problem. Clearly not the way most, it wasn't, I was clearly doing cowboy coding, which I know is not a sustainable thing, but I'm just kind of curious what I should change to make that more usable for the community, basically. Yeah.
I think that cowboy coding is just fine. If you put that in a pull request, you will have more people looking at the code and making suggestions. So I think that's a start. So create an issue, put all that in a pull request. If you don't know how to do that, we can help you out. And then you'll start getting reviews from people and suggestions, and we'll fix it. We'll make it less cowboyish.
This issue is number 5146 in backdrop issues queue. It does look like there is a pull request that is failing tests, and it looks like you're already working on it, Luke. So I think you're on the right track there. I also got really excited about that because I saw somebody say, oh, we should also add this change to include the module in the config file so we can tell people which module is missing. And I'm like, I remember that issue. I created it a very long time ago. It's a 1000 issue number, which I was just like, woohoo, revive the old issues. This is great. So that is 1811, if anyone wants to see that. And these are definitely separate but related. They'll both improve the config sync experience. I like yours better though, Luke.
Look, by the way, if you edit your pull request, the first comment in your pull request and add a fixes, the word fixes space, and then the link to the issue, it would automatically link it back to the issue. This is something that we do, and then it appears in the metadata on the side.
I think I followed that. All right, so is it a keyword fixes, or is it just any link to the
Yeah,
I think
You just
you
just
have to
need a
use
link.
fixes are fixed, I think. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it won't do the backlink.
just the link won't work. The link
Yeah.
does add it in the thread of messages, but you know how there's the sidebar where we have all the labels for the issue, the milestones, etc. So if you add the word fixes, there's some other keywords as well, but fixes is the one that I know of, and then space, and then a full link to the issue, then it adds it as a metadata there. Yeah, see, there's a section on the side that says labels, the project's milestone, and then it says linked pull requests, and it's empty now. When you do that, you will see the link to the pull requests show up there.
All right, so I'm actually trying to do this right now, of course.
No, and I can help you out if, yeah, and I can demonstrate what it, I can't share my screen now, but yeah, what it actually does after you do that.
Right. So is it in the first comment in the pull request that I put the fixes?
Yes. So you need to, yeah, edit the first comment and
Not
add the
even the
word.
comments, like the original, like before there's a comment, like the actual body of the thing.
Right, but it calls it a comment on.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
then yeah. They're all comments.
Yes, they're all
yeah.
comments.
Your commit message is the first comment on
Yes, you've done it.
the
We
pull
yeah.
request.
So if you look at the issue now, you will see the link to the pull request on the sidebar on the right, under the linked pull request section. There you go. It's easier for the rest of the people to know how many pull requests are there, you know, if there's multiple by many people, which ones have been closed, which ones have been merged, things like that. Good.
Yeah. I figured there was something like that. And I was trying to, I put links in and was trying to, but so it actually needs the word fixes to.
There's a few other, yeah, there's a few other keywords, but I don't know which ones they are.
It's also fixed with the past tense works.
Fixed.
I don't know about fixed present tense, but
And it has to be in that first.
Yeah.
Oh, it's multiple. It's close, closes, closed, fix, fixes, fixed, resolve, resolves, resolved. So any one of those will do.
there we go.
And here's the documentation. Here's the documentation for it.
Greg, you're so great. I'm so glad you're back.
Thanks.
Here's the answer to your problem. Here's the documentation. That's great.
The second link takes you directly to the keyword thingy. Perfect. Cool.
All right. Any other user experience issues we want to talk about? We also could talk about design focused issues. So those are issues where we feel like the solution to the problem needs input from somebody who understands how to create a design or how to improve the design of the page, which is not me. So I feel like every time I run into one of those issues, I'm pretty good about adding the design label on it because I know it's out of my scope. But I'm sure there are probably a lot of other issues in the queue that need the expertise of a designer that don't have the label on them, which makes it a little hard to find. Just because it comes up as we're working on other stuff. We're like, oh, we should consider the design of this user interface or whatever.
And unfortunately, we don't have designer experts in the team. We're all amateurs, but yeah, if anyone joins the community, they will be able to, you know, filter the issues by that.
And I've talked to a couple of people who are like, oh, I can help with that, but then they can't find any useful issues to work on or issues that they think are inviting enough to work on. And I'm like, I'm sure we have some. I just don't know where they are.
It's easy to spot them for the agenda as well. It's time that we have the design meeting if there's a design label there.
Yeah. We probably should do some triage on the issue queue. Every now and then I go through it, searching for issues that are good first issues, but I never do that for design. That might be a good to-do list item for me or anyone else if you're interested.
Should we occasionally have like design roundtables where we bring in like non-technical people that you know care about colors and fonts?
That would be good. I would also love it if we brought in someone who not only cared about colors and fonts, but also had an eye for like what could be an accessibility issue. Because I know that like we're using a lot of grays in our admin theme, and I've been doing a lot of government work lately where everything has to be made accessible. And there's stuff that I come across, I'm like, I never would have thought that would be a problem. And then I look like backdrops admin theme and I'm like, oh, this is probably not good. I don't really know exactly what the issues are, but if we could get someone to come in and be like, this could be useful for basis, it could be useful for 7, it could be useful for any interface, something like vertical tabs that's going to appear everywhere. Stuff like that, I think would be great to get a.
What I've run into on that is the layout UI. Like I've had people who can't tell the difference between the gray that's the main background and the gray that's the region background.
Do we have an issue with that already?
And so they were actually, this person, she was dragging around blocks, and she commented that sometimes the blocks get really skinny and she doesn't know why or how, and how some of them on some layouts they don't do that and on some layouts they do. And it was because there was a sidebar region in that layout. But she actually just couldn't see the region backgrounds.
I think on somewhere on Drupal, I don't remember if it was panels or not, there was something where when you dragged it, it would put a little dotted line around the outside of the region. So it wasn't there all the time, but as soon as you picked up a block, it was very clear where you could put it. I liked that.
That's the panels in place editor.
Yeah,
I've been messing with that recently.
that could be a good solution. I feel like I've seen some issue about layout usability before, but I can't find it now. Here we go. Usability border contrast. This is an old one. It's not a very well labeled issue. Issue number 1632. Drop it in Zulip also. Of course, it's one of my issues, which is a terrible title.
Yeah, I think that the screenshot is all there, that it doesn't apply anymore, but the issue is still present.
Yeah.
The container, the background color of the container is, it blends in with the rest of the UI.
Okay, I'll maybe do a rewrite of that whole issue.
I'll update the. I'm actually updating the title to something more relevant.
Oh, I just did that too. But you might do it better. I said layout, UI, usability, regions and borders are hard to differentiate. But feel free to rename it to something else if you.
No, that's good. That's good.
Okay. I thought you might have something better in mind, but you probably couldn't see my change because you were editing it.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll read it to you and let you know. Suppose we don't need usability in there. That's fine. But yeah, that's a good one. Thanks, Joseph, for bringing that up again. I'm gonna drop it in the agenda too.
I think there's something similar when you're in the UI that you're building flexible layouts. And I think that it has to do with the region that you're dragging, or the regions in general, that you don't immediately know that they're draggable. They don't have any crosshair thingies. So anyone that has worked with them knows that they're draggable, but it's not immediately apparent.
I think I ran into that too. I did a demo for somebody yesterday and they're like, oh, you can drag them. And I thought that, like, of course you can drag them, but it didn't occur to me that there wasn't any visual cue there, but that's, yeah.
we've been working with backdrop so long that we're making knowledge assumptions.
It's useful to show things to new people, and see them with new eyes, but yeah.
So I just went to look at that, and when I mouse over one of the rows, it changes my cursor to be the drag cursor,
Yeah.
and it kind of like changes the color a little bit. Oh, actually, yeah, it has some like border stuff. But yeah, there's nothing on the screen if you're just sitting there looking at it.
Yeah, and see how the header has a darker gray background. So I don't know what's the purpose of that.
That
if
is
you-
actually because the header has a darker gray background above it.
Yeah. So if you hover your cursor over it, there's a shadow that a bottom shadow that appears. Are you getting that as well? Which
Yeah.
does not run across. So there's something, yeah, definitely
So
going on. Yeah.
If you mouse, it's actually inheriting the CSS of the admin theme on these regions. So if you, so the header region is actually goes all the way across the screen, and it's that gray, that's that gray color. So that row is actually inheriting the CSS from the admin theme around it.
It shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
How do we differentiate that on our layouts? I think there's like a different renderer.
On the,
We also have dotted lines on.
Yeah, I think that we should bring that in line with the layout builder so that it's more consistent.
Yeah.
So the region should have dotted lines, and then but we need to keep in mind that what we're dragging in the layout builder is blocks, whereas in the other instance, it's just regions that we're dragging around.
Yeah, I still think having the same visual cues, like we do
Exactly.
have a dotted border on both. Yeah, I don't know.
can I share my screen for a minute?
Yeah.
Oh.
I want to show something else on this. Okay, so here we have regions that are, they have the container applied to them. And if I configure the row and remove the container, it makes it wider, but it's so, the difference here between this thing, which does not, which is fixed width, and this thing here, which is full screen width, is very tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably another thing that should be put down for, I don't know, things that should be fixed.
Okay.
This sounds like a meta. We already found 3 issues in that.
Yeah. Are you writing this down, Greg?
I'll write a ticket initially
Okay.
after we finish. Yeah.
I have one open, but I haven't written anything in it yet. So I thought, I don't know. Okay. I know there's we already have a meta for flexible layouts that includes a handful of other things. I don't know if these should all be part of that, or these are all separate.
Yeah, I'll check that first.
Okay. Let's see. So one issue that is on our agenda that's been here for a while is how to safely change CSS in 1.x. And I think we have an idea here, which was to add supplemental CSS selectors. I don't think I have a pull request for an example. Let me just scroll to the bottom here. It doesn't say. I'll have to reread it and see where we are. But I think that was just waiting for an example pull request so we could see what that would look like in reality. But I am feeling hopeful about that one. Oh, here it is, 4782. Yeah. Still need to reread it. Okay. And then I feel like, that sparked an idea and then I lost it, but it came back. I wanted to throw out some ideas, and this might not be the right place to do it, but just because I'm thinking about it right now, about what Backdrop 2 is going to look like. This is in 2025, so we have a little bit of time to decide. But I was thinking, like, there's a bunch of stuff that we've run into recently where we've tried to make changes to the admin theme. And as we're looking at it, we go, oh, we should really improve the markup here. And the admin theme is the safest place to be able to do something like that, really, because the number of people that are providing an override for the administrative theme is much fewer than the number of people who are providing an override for the out-of-box theme. But it does still present an issue, or if somebody has written a bunch of CSS against the markup that's there and you change the markup, you can break their site. So we've been pushing back on making changes to markup and CSS in some places because we're worried about the effect it'll have on people running Backdrop sites. And I don't think that that's something we'll ever be able to do in a way that's going to be backwards compatible in terms of markup. It's just, I mean, maybe we'll come up with something in the next 5 years, but I haven't thought of anything yet. I don't know. But I was thinking that Backdrop major versions, if we continue to say, okay, there's a bunch of stuff that we can add new features, we can add new APIs, we can add a whole bunch of stuff in ways that is backwards compatible. Backdrop 2 could drop the stuff that's marked as deprecated, but it could also be an opportunity for us to make those markup changes that we want to make. And that way we would be saying that, okay, when Backdrop 2 comes out, you're going to need to check your theme to make sure that everything in your theme is still going to look good afterwards. And if we have a very clear line like that about what you need to do in order to move from Backdrop 1 to Backdrop 2, I think that'll make it a lot easier on people. So make sure there's no errors in your logs for deprecated functions, and then check your theme and make sure it looks good on the next version. And I think that that would be a good way to ensure the amount of change that we're imposing on people is far less than what it was, for example, from 7 to Backdrop, which is what our goal is. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that yet.
No.
Okay, we've got 5 years to have thoughts.
So
Fair enough.
I've been thinking about this a little bit with some projects that I'm working on for UI tools, and that is so basically inconsistency in how we handle markup and CSS is probably the biggest problem with making a UI tool for configuring this stuff.
Okay.
So I think if we're going to treat CSS and HTML markup as part of our API that we don't want to break, then we need to have that laid out somewhere of like, if you target these patterns, then you will be safe. Similar to the way we have our API documentation, where we're like, if you use these functions, you are safe. If you go outside of these, then your code might not be safe.
Like if you always target by using classes instead of like
Right.
tags or something, then that would give us the ability to change the tag level or the tag entirely.
Right, like the whatever, like dot block title.
Yeah.
Whereas the block title itself might have different HTML tags, like it might be an H4 in some cases, or it might be a div or whatever.
Yeah. I love this.
Joseph, when you said UI tool, what exactly are you referring to? Like the what are they called? Like UI kits, reusable patterns, or what did you refer to when you said that?
So I've done a lot of work in the past with the color module, and then with another module that I've made called the configurable block style module, which essentially allows you to apply color changes to one block, and it dynamically generates CSS for you.
Yeah.
And so I've started working on basically a new module that in theory could replace those, where it just would be able to look at your CSS and dynamically build a form to change any of the options you've specified. Basically a UI to write CSS. Although I probably wouldn't expose everything, because that would be a bit overwhelming.
Well, this goes back to the question of how opinionated. the design structures are, right? You know,
Mhm.
if we were highly opinionated and we were willing to specify like smacks as an approach, then you can work with that and make assumptions. Perhaps there's a fork, like the distinction between, you know, stable and classy in Drupal world, where there's a opinionated structure versus a, you know, do-it-yourself structure.
Maybe. I don't have all the answers to this. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
wait.
I like it though, especially now that we're giving people UI tools to do things like change tags and heading levels. It makes it even more important that your CSS is written in a way that it's not so brittle that using the interface we provide you can break the way your site looks. And I think that this is going to be really helpful, not just, you know, in telling us as core developers what we shouldn't be changing from Backdrop 1 to Backdrop 2, but anyone who's building a theme for Backdrop could read this documentation and be like, oh, because there's a user interface for people to change their block heading level, I better not target a H2 or a H3 if I want to make it a specific color or something. I should target block title instead. And that's a fantastic example, Joseph. That really made it sink in for me. I don't know how we would go about documenting all of that. I feel like it's going to be really hard to do like a start to finish complete guide, but we might, you know, start with what we know and see, you know, if some documentation is better than none. So we could start there, and as we run into problems, we can document them, and I don't know, we could even like write tests against it, I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe.
if we can incrementally get there, because I mean, this is the kind of thing that I'm always dreaming about, right? That rather than it require that everybody wants to make a site, you know everything there is to know about everything. You know, be able to give them tools like, okay, here's colors, here's spacing, here's fonts, and you know, you have to have an allowance between, you know, having people that don't know how to do these things, give them someone to get stuff done, while not handcuffing the people that do know how to do it. But as long as if we find some way to make it like you're making an intentional decision, right? Like if you want to stay, you know, within canon, you can use these tools, but you have to follow these rules. If you want to break them, you know, here's what you're risking. And I mean, you know,
Right.
I'm not sure how big it sounds like a big task to come up with a list of things, but maybe some of them can be teased out.
Yeah, and I've started working. The way I've started working on this is as its own separate module that actually it just completely bypasses the theme settings system, because the way the theme settings work right now is very rigid. So I don't know how it's going to look in the end. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of the parts. And a lot of this is I want to have it available at several different levels. Like so one example would be a university site where they have 500 sites that all look the same in a multi-site, and the university ITs people are not going to want anyone to change the colors of their theme, so they might turn that off. But so basically having multiple permission levels and multiple functionality levels that could be turned on and off independent of each other. So give people the ability to apply like a call to action style to a block on their site without being able to change the color of that in the case of the university site. But then in the case of like a small business who doesn't have dedicated people for that, and they are just figuring it out, then they might want everything turned on so they can manually set the color of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is still a long way off.
Yeah, interesting though. Part of my eagerness to talk about it now is that I feel like if we could make a decision at some point soon, it would give us a lot more flexibility to start making changes to things we want to see changed. So we're like, oh, I can't change this right now, but do I know if I'll ever be able to do it? But if we know it'll come in Backdraft 2, we can have a 2 branch that includes like markup changes. But right now we're sort of still a question mark is what's going into 2.
Right. I mean, we can build a lot of these things in Contrib as well.
That's true. All right. Well, we are coming up on the end of the hour. I wanted to see if anyone has anything else they wanted to add. It doesn't have to be design or user experience related. If not, I'm going to recommend that we go ahead and end the recording in the live stream, and then it'll give us a couple minutes to get organized before the next meeting.